If we now navigate to our MOD folder and duplicate our select.php file rather than typing the same thing over and over again, I'm just going to copy this file and call it insert. And there we go. If I now open this file, and first of all, what we're going to do is to remove the code which is redundant. And I'm just going to remove all this plus all this here. We'll leave the JSON encode. And after the try statement, we're first going to try if empty post item. We're first doing some validation basically. And I'm just going to put these on new lines so that we can actually read it a little bit better. Or, so 2 vertical lines, empty post quantity is the other field we are waiting for. And then empty, it's going to be the last, is post, and it's going to be type. If any of this is empty, then set of curly brackets, we want to throw new PD or exception saying invalid request. And then we have association of this variable. So we create the variables item equals post item. Then we have quantity post qty type equals post type. So now that we have them converted to the variables, we can go for our SQL statement. After the database set attribute, we go for the SQL equals insert into, and we go for items, and we specify the fields now, ID, item, quantity, and type. And we go for values, we go for null, then we have question mark, and question mark. We use prepared statement here, as you can see, the PHP PDO. If you don't know about prepared statements, you can either check on php.net or try any of our other tutorials when we actually covering this topic. Then we have statement equals object db, and we go for prepare. So we pass in the SQL, and then we check if exclamation mark statement execute, and now we are passing the parameters which we want to bind to those placeholders here, which only are 3. As you can see, the first one we specify directly as null, and then only these 3 require the values. So we're passing the item, the quantity, and the type. So if that didn't go okay, then what we want is throw another PDO exception, and I'm just going to copy this one from here, PDO exception, and if I just replace the message rather than invalid request, the execute method failed. And if everything is okay, we continue. Obviously, each of these throw statements takes us straight to the catch block, and obviously echoes the message and error true, and obviously ignores everything that's after this. But if everything's okay, then we simply go for the ID, which will be object db last insert ID without any parameter. So this is the ID of the last record. Then after this, we go for another SQL statement. We start with SQL equals select. And we go for table I, which will be table items, and we want everything from this table. Then we want from the table T, which is types, we want table name as type name, and then we go for from, we've forgotten the comma here after the first item, from, and it's going to be items si join types st on table types id field equals table items type field, and then we have where ID equals question mark. Let me quickly go through this SQL statement. So we selecting everything from the table items, which is represented by table by letter I, as you can see here, and then from table types represented by table by letter T, we're pulling out the name, which we are changing the label to type name, and then obviously if, we're joining both items and types on type ID, where item type is the same as obviously this type ID. And then we want the record which of the item from the items table with the ID equals question mark, which is the placeholder for what we're just going to be passing to the execute statement. We start with a statement equals object db prepare, and we pass in our SQL statement. Now we check if exclamation mark statement execute. If it wasn't successful, and we pass in the binding parameter, which is the ID of last record we've added to the table, then we throw in the new exception. I'm just going to copy this from the previous statement. Obviously, once this exception has been thrown, obviously anything that's after the exception is ignored, and we go straight to the catch block and display the error message. We're passing this obviously to the JavaScript again as JSON. So this statement after the execution, because we're fetching the record, so we're going to display a different message. The result returned no object. And after this, rather than this result here, we're going to have statement fetch mode. We want to set fetch mode to the associative array, so the record is returned as table cell name, obviously value pair, and then item equals statement, and we go for fetch this time rather than fetch all, because we're only returning one record. And now our JSON encode, we're removing types and renaming items to item. And that's everything. If we now save the file, go to the browser, refresh the page, let's check the console. What's gonna happen? We've got potatoes, onions. Let's go for beans, and we want say 2. As you can see now that I've typed 2, the add button has been enabled, and we want 2 kilos. Click on add. There we go. The insert method has been executed, the record has been returned, and it has been appended to our list. So everything seems to be working fine. If I refresh the page, all records stay in place.